All right, in our last explainer, we really locked in the importance of timing. That's the T in titrate. It gave us our broad category. But now we get to the really interesting part. We're going to use the next two letters, TRE for triggers and A for associated symptoms. This is how we take a blurry picture and bring it into sharp focus. So that's what this is all about. We're going to show you how to use these trigger profiles and symptom patterns to really zero in on a diagnosis. And get this, you can often do it with an incredible amount of confidence before you even start your physical exam. This really hits the nail on the head. I mean, think about it. A patient describes seconds of vertigo every time they change position. Your brain immediately screams BPPV, right? But what if they also mention, oh, and my ear feels full, and there's this ringing sound? Whoa, the entire diagnosis just pivots. That's the power of this framework. It just refuses to let you miss those game-changing details. Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1, decoding triggers. Once you've established the timing, this becomes your first and honestly your most powerful filter for cutting down the list of possibilities. The most important question you can possibly ask is, what reliably brings it on? And I really can't stress that word reliably enough. We are not interested in vague associations. We want an action, something the patient can do predictably time and time again to bring on their symptoms. This question is your master key. So let's look at our first classic trigger, positional. You've heard this story 1,000 times, right? The patient tells you, it hits me every single time I roll over in bed, or when they lie down flat or look up at a high shelf. That specific action is your trigger. And if you hear that history, your brain should go to one place and one place only: benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, BPP. It's BPP until proven otherwise. This isn't just a possibility, it's the #1 suspect, and it mandates your next move. Perform a Dix-Hallpike test, right then and there in the same visit. Next up, the orthostatic trigger. This one's all about fighting gravity. It's that classic lightheadedness or dizziness that comes on specifically when a patient stands up from a chair or gets out of bed. When a patient reliably reports that, your huge list of differential diagnoses just shrinks to a tiny handful. You're thinking about orthostatic hypotension, maybe a broader autonomic failure, or even POTS. And the next step is crystal clear: perform an active stand test. Now for a really specific trigger, and one that's so often missed: visual motion. This is when the patient's world just gets too busy for their brain to handle. They'll talk about feeling unsteady, walking down a supermarket aisle, scrolling on a screen, or being in a big crowd. And here's the absolute key. This trigger is highly specific. It is an incredibly powerful clue from the history. If you hear about visual motion sensitivity, your differential narrows immediately to either PPPD or vestibular migraine. It's a massive diagnostic shortcut. And just to round things out, a few other high-yield triggers to keep in your back pocket. Dizziness brought on by straining or even just a loud sound. You got to think about a superior canal dehiscence. The usual migraine suspects: stress, poor sleep, certain foods, that points straight to vestibular migraine. And finally, if it's dizziness with general exertion or simple head movements, you might be looking at a bilateral vestibular loss. Okay, so you've nailed the trigger. Now we're going to apply our next filter, associated symptoms. This is where we listen for the whole constellation of symptoms, the clusters, that happen during an episode to really refine our thinking. And the guiding question here is simple, but it's so profound. You just have to ask, beyond the spinning or the unsteadiness, what else is happening? What's the full package? Let's start with the auditory cluster. If the dizziness comes in episodes and it brings along friends like fluctuating hearing loss, aural fullness, and tinnitus, well, you are looking at a classic presentation for Ménière's disease. But, and this is a big one, if the onset is acute with brand new hearing loss on one side plus vertigo, your alarm bells have to be ringing for potential AICA stroke. That's a can't-miss scenario. Next up, the migrainous and neurological cluster. Dizziness paired with a headache, sensitivity to light and sound, maybe an aura. That is screaming vestibular migraine. But if the associated symptoms are things like double vision, slurred speech, or limb weakness, well, those are massive red flags. We're not in migraine territory anymore. We're worried about a posterior circulation stroke or TIA. And finally, we have the autonomic and chronic clusters. Symptoms like nausea, sweating, and looking pale, specifically on standing, just double down on an orthostatic or autonomic cause. And as we've already seen, That chronic sense of unsteadiness that gets so much worse with visual motion brings us right back to our top two suspects, PPPD or vestibular migraine. Now, I want to share two absolute gems with you. These are incredibly high-yield clinical pearls that come directly from the history, and you just cannot afford to miss them. Here's the first one, and it's a beauty. For any patient with chronic dizziness, ask them this specific question. Do you avoid supermarkets? It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But if they say yes, your suspicion for PPPD should shoot through the roof. It is one of the single most specific clues you can get. And here's the second pearl. This one is absolutely critical. A patient presents with sudden, acute vertigo and new hearing loss on one side. Your brain might want to jump to labyrinthitis. You have to fight that urge. Your default diagnosis must be an ICA stroke until proven otherwise. This is a vascular emergency, full stop. So let's put it all together. The goal here isn't to memorize dozens of rare conditions. The goal is to master a simple, repeatable process. It's all about pattern recognition. And it really is a simple three-step process. Step 1, identify the reliable trigger. Step 2, listen for the associated symptom cluster. And step 3, map that specific pattern to your diagnosis. That's it. You're replacing that vague uncertainty with real diagnostic precision. By combining just timing, triggers, and associated symptoms, you can solve the vast majority of dizziness presentations. In the final explainer of this series, we're going to add the last crucial piece of the puzzle, the red flags and referral thresholds you need to know to complete the titrate algorithm safely. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. We really hope you found it valuable. To explore more topics on dizziness, vertigo, and imbalance, and to get a ton of resources for both clinicians and patients, please visit us at australiandizzinessclinics.com. And of course, please subscribe to our channel and let us know what you think.